And somehow yesterday, that recording that I thought was lost wasn't really. It showed up. So that was kind of cool. You want to shut the lights off real quick? Thanks. All right, so we're going to throw on these bats. And for 4 pounds of clay, I didn't weigh that out, but that's roughly 4 pounds of clay. That might be actually even closer to 5, but that means you can make a bigger plate, right? But the typical, and I keep saying that word, typical. So your average plate, the plate that you pull out of your cupboard to eat your dinner on, or 2 pieces of toast, whatever, it starts out at 10 inches wide, and that's where these holes are on the bat. They're at 10 inches. So you already have kind of a guide that when you are opening up your clay, you're going to open it up about 10 inches. And then when you finish with your plate and the plate shrinks, it's going to shrink down to about 9, 8 3/4, somewhere in there. And then that's like perfect plate. Okay. If you want a more formal plate, this size bat, this is the 12-inch, take it all the way out to the edge. And then when it shrinks, it'll be about 10 inches. And that's definitely like a formal plate. So I know it seems weird, right? Like we would have to think about, like, what size plate do I want? Like, is it a T? Well, like yesterday, where our plate that we made turned into like a dessert plate, right? Or what if it's the little plate that you put your coffee cup on? So it's all kind of like eventually what'll happen is you're going to find your style of throwing. And then once you find your style, then that's going to dictate how much clay you use and how big you make your things. All right. But right now we're going to just talk in general, in general. So in general, we're going to start out with a 10-inch plate. So out to these bat pins here. All right, so again, I've got a few tools. I'm going to use a rib, throwing stick. I usually have a wooden rib, but I don't in here today. I'll use that one. Okay, that wooden rib there. So just a reminder, whenever you're using wooden tools, put them in your water first, get them wet. Otherwise they'll stick. All right. So I've got a large amount of clay here. I've kind of wedged it into a cone shape, and you can do that. You don't have to. But what I did was I rounded the bottom, okay, like that, so that when I throw it down into the center, it doesn't create an air pocket, okay, that there isn't any air trapped. It's going to start at the center and then kind of push out and down. Okay. And I start out by just kind of hand centering it. So I'm centering and I'm turning at the same time. Okay, it's not going to be perfect, but it'll be close. Uh-oh. Is my switch on? Here we go. All right, so the main thing on this, on plates, is that you center low, right? We don't want a high piece. We don't want a high, like a mug. It was okay if it was a little thicker because we were only centering about to that width. This one we're going to center all the way out. So we want it thin, not thin. We want it about 1 inch thick. Okay, so thickness of my thumb, and then out, and then tapered almost like a very shallow bowl. Okay, so down in the center, thicker on the outsides. So leaning way in, use your body, center this up. This clay is a little bit stiff, so I'm going to cone it to begin with here. Add a little water to it. Okay, and in this case, I'm really pressing hard. Like, this is pretty stiff clay. So, if your clay is that stiff also that you're using, you're going to want to put a good amount of pressure on it. You see there's some areas that are kind of pushing me around. So I'm going to do this one more time. There we go. Okay, when I'm centering, I'm going to be using mostly my right hand, pushing down quite firmly with my palm. Okay, the outer hand, my left hand, is going to be guiding and allowing the clay to come out. Okay, because I'm pushing this down with my right hand. So got kind of a 90-degree angle here. Okay, and right here is my bat hole, my bat pin holes. Okay, so I know I don't have a whole lot more to go, maybe another inch. So I'm going to start kind of forming it and moving it out. All right, and how I do that right now, I've got a little bit of a hump in the middle. All right, so on plates, this happens a lot. Okay, so this is one of the things that you're going to have to deal with. You're going to kind of be fighting it. All right, because when you start moving away, what happens, the area that you leave starts to raise up, okay, compared to the area that you're going to. All right, it's kind of like I've said it before, I think the metaphor is like on the back of the boat, right? The boat's going through the water and you get that rooster tail of water that comes up. That's what's happening, okay? We're moving through the plane with the clay, and the clay starts to lift up behind, okay? So we have to work with that. So I'm going to make a fist, basically like that, and then I'm going to tilt my fist like this, and I'm going to use just this point right here to pull out from. So like my knuckles right there. I don't know if I can see right there. Right? So here's my fist, push down, and then pull out. And I'm just pulling towards my body. The other thing is you want to make sure that your wheel is not going too fast. The farther away from center your clay is, the faster the clay is moving, even though the wheel is only turning at one speed. Okay, so for instance, if I want to make it, get it around this center area with my finger, I can do that really easily. I couldn't do that as easy out here. Okay, I'd have to go much faster with my hand in order to make the same revolution. So slow your wheel speed down once you get out towards the edge here. I am at my bat pins. I can feel them with my hands or my finger. All right. So now I'm going to start compressing this clay. Because we have a wide area of clay, if we don't compress it, it's going to crack. Okay? Not it might crack, it's going to crack. Okay? So just be aware of that. So I'm going to use my fingertips or the pads of my fingers, and I'm going to start at the outside and work my way to the center. Why? Does anybody know? I told you earlier. It is slower in the center, but not quite. What happens to the clay? Right, the rooster tail thing. So if I want to get rid of that hump in the middle, I push towards that hump, and it's going to raise the clay up out here. Okay? And if I start at the center and work my way out all the time, I'm going to get this triangle in the center. All right? So I want to go back and forth with it. So I'm going to start out here on the outside. And I'm pressing, but I'm not pressing super duper hard. I'm just pressing enough to kind of compress that clay in. I can see my finger marks. But I'm not like making super ridges. And you can see right here, I'm starting to come out, and you could see that cone start to take shape, right? So I don't want that. I'm going to start coming back out here. And I'm taking my time here to do this, do it the right way, or not the right way, but get it just the way I want it. I'm going to use my pinky here as a larger surface. I'm pressing down with my left hand, just on the side of my pinky. All right. So we're getting there. I can feel with my hands. I've got a little bit of a dip right here, but it's pretty good. I'm good with that, just like that. All right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my wooden rib, all right, and I'm going to compress it even more. I'm using this rib to not just compress, but to flatten and smooth the clay out. I'm holding the rib at an angle. It's not like straight up and down like this. It's at an angle, okay? So I'm smoothing. Like that. So I call this the business area. This is the area where your peas are, right? And you don't want your peas rolling all around. You want the peas to stay where the peas are supposed to stay. So that's another reason to not have the hump in the middle. Another one reason to have the bowl shape is what happens naturally for whatever reason with clay is when we start building the walls and the sides, as it dries, these sides will start to fall like this, will drop down, and the center of your clay will rise up. It's weird, like it's going to naturally want to kind of hump. So if you put this little bit of a shallow bowl shape, and I mean a shallow bowl shape, in there, it counteracts that. Okay, and it becomes more like just regular flat. Okay, so now we're going to work on the sides and building the sides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my thumb and just slide it in. You guys can see there? Slide it in underneath. And I'm going to take it in. Let's see, you can kind of see with the clay here that's on my thumb. I'm going to take it in just to my first knuckle, okay, of my thumb. So I'm getting underneath. I'm going to add some water underneath there with my hands. I'm going to slow my wheel speed down just a little bit. And now I'm going to throw this wall. Okay, I'm going to lift up. I'm going to pinch. and lift up at the same time. So I'm pinching just slightly. Add a little more water. All right. I'm going to throw this wall up. I'm pushing more with my outer fingers. Taking that big, kind of that thick bead of clay that's on there. And I'm going to thin it out a little bit. Now, when I was first starting throwing, this is where I would fail a lot. All right, because let's see, this area right here, and I guess you can see this right here. So this edge right here where my left hand is on the inside, and then where my right finger is on the outside, if that is too thin, when you lay the sides of your plates down, they're just gonna fall. Okay, so they have to be a little bit thicker right here to support. Okay, we can always go back a little later and we can trim some out. But if we make it too thin right here, what'll happen is your rim will eventually start to just kind of wobble on you and fall. And if that's the case, if that happens, that's it. Like there isn't anything else you can do. You can try to save it if you want, but in my experience, it doesn't. All right. So, all right. So I am going to, the wall is still up. I'm not done with this plate yet, although I could be. This could be a nice little pasta plate, something like that, right? I'm going to compress my rim. Compress your rim as much as you can. Make it nice and smooth. So the stronger and the more compressed your rim is, the stronger your plate will be. Okay. So again, I'm going to drop these sides down a little bit, but I haven't done that yet. And I want to get like the finish. I want to be finished. Like I want when I drop the sides, I want that to be almost my last thing I do. All right, so I'm using the metal rib here, smoothing way out nicely. I may even come in here, smooth out this area. This one's going to be a little bit more on the style of a formal plate. Okay. I'm going to use my sponge because I have some slip in the middle, but I'm going to show you something here. So as soon as I use my sponge, I'm taking away the fine particles of the clay and I'm leaving the grog, the gritty stuff. So I have to go back in and compress it. If I don't, that's going to be like, I don't know, really gritty. Like I could grate garlic on this plate, even with glaze on it. So we don't want that, right? We want a nice smooth plate. So I'm going to come back in here and just smooth it out. All right, now I'm ready to lower the sides. So I'm going to use my wooden rib again. I'm going to use this flat side here. All right, I'm going to hold it gently with my left hand underneath to support. Okay, and then I'm going to push down with my right with the rib. So it's going to look like this. All right. Got a little deep with my rib there and I boogered up the corner, so I'm going to go fix that. One thing I like to do is this little edge, this edge right here, where the plate and the rim come together, that particular, I like to make that nice and like sharp, like not sharp, but like I like to make it so that you can tell that it's there. Okay, so you can see that line there. So I might go in and refine that a couple of times. I very gently compress my rim again. All right, I've got some slip in there. Get rid of that. Come back to my rib. So you see there's like a process here, right? Like this, it's not just a run and gun. It's not a throw and go kind of thing. Like you have to take your time on plates. Plates are one of the most used pieces in your home. Okay, you use them all the time. So what do you think of that? That's fair? Okay, kind of a plate there. All right. I'm going to wire this off. And wiring it off, I'm going to make it go kind of slow here. Remember, pull very tight with the toggles on the outsides of your hand. Use your thumbs. Press down. Take your time. Allow the clay to just cut by itself. Okay? Tight, tight, tight. You don't want that. You don't want this wire to lift up. As soon as it does, the clay will come underneath it between the wire and the bat, and it will raise it up more and then cut a hole out of the bottom of your plate that you just spent 10 minutes working on. Okay? All right, so that's one style of plate. It's not too bad. How do you get it off? Yeah, so I wired it to begin with, and then when it gets to leather hard, you could put it on the wheel again and wire it a second time, okay? And then it'll just pop right off. Some bats, like I have wooden bats in my studio. These guys are just made out of wood, and the wood absorbs the moisture, and then the bottom dries just as fast as the top, and then eventually it just pops off. But in our case, that's not something we have. I'm a little apprehensive on this bit of clay here, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I would refer to that plate, because of the size of the rim, as more of a formal plate. I'm going to make this one here is going to be just kind of like an everyday plate. Okay, less formal. This is the style of plate that most of mine are at home. They don't really have that defined rim. And if they do, it's not very large. using my pinky now to kind of just compress. A bit of an air bubble there. You guys catch that move? When I was opening it up, I was using my palm, and then I just rotated my palm out like this. It's like using my palm, push it in, then just rotate my palm out. Yeah, I had an old potter friend show me that one. He was made pots for years and years and years professionally, like in mass production. Like he'd kick out 100 plates in the morning before lunch. Dude was awesome. He's the same guy. He would do 100 mugs in the morning and then go on to like vases and plates and stuff, and then come back to them in the evening and put handles on them. Like he was that fast. They dried out that fast. He could like finish them up. He'd do 100 mugs in a day. Finished. It's crazy. A little part of me hated him and was totally envious of him. Okay, compress, compress, compress. On these plates, we are going to be putting a foot on them. All right, so it's really important for you not to let these wheel thrown plates dry out. And I will be showing you how to put a foot on. A foot is, Lacey, could you go over to that cart there where all the other plates are kind of at, and pick up one that's been fired and then turn it over. There you go. See that ring on the bottom? So yeah, hold it up so that, there you go. So that's a foot ring. Okay, just gives it a little bit of lift, less contact with the table, and then well, that's another area to decorate too if you want. That little area inside. All right, so here I go. Lifting my wall. Wheel speed's a little high. There we go. Okay. So I'm raising it up and out, very similar to that style, right? But I'm gonna just kind of stop before I get to the end. Use a rib again on here. Define my edge. A little bit of a hump right here. Get rid of that. Go. How you hold your rib can guide the clay also. So if I'm going to hold, let's see if you can see this in the right-hand video there. If I hold my rib, I could hold it like here I am. I'm at 6 o'clock. This is to me, right? on the face. If I hold it like that, as the clay comes around, what happens is it hits and it pushes the clay towards the center. Okay? If I hold my rib like this, so it's just a little bit different. So where the clay is hitting here first and moving towards the center, if I turn it, the clay will hit here first on the toe and move towards the heel of the rib and push the clay away from the center. Do you get that? Do you understand that? Like that's one of these things where it's really subtle. All you got to do is move your ribs. So if I have, say I've got a bump right here, okay, right in this spot, I can hold my rib and the clay is coming around. If I hold it 90 degrees to it, okay, the clay is going this way and I hold my rib kind of 90 degrees to that. It's just going to compress that clay. If I hold it a little bit at an angle like this, it's going to push the clay towards the center. All right. If I'm here at 90 degrees again and I push it this way, it's going to push the clay towards the outside. Okay. It's really kind of interesting how that works. All right. I'm almost done here. Compress my rim again. Get all my goop out. So I'm leaving kind of this little bit right here on the edge. And that's basically my rim. That's all I have for a rim. Is that. Although the plate does kind of move up like a bowl, in a shallow bowl. Okay? So what I like to do to help finish this off with this style of rim is I compress it nicely here. And then I take the flat of my wooden rib, support it, and I just flatten it out. Like that. And come back in. That's a style thing. That's not necessary. This is a traditional plate. It's kind of like a country style plate. So the country style plate will have a round rim, and me just putting that little flat on it like that is just my way of making it mine. Okay. You could do something similar as well. You could change it. Just putting your signature, your style on it helps to make it yours. So that's a country style plate. You can add a little bit more flair to it if you put a little spiral in it or something like that. That's totally up to you. Okay. Some other style, we could take, I could take a rib. Let's see, I don't want to go too long here. Let me do this. I'm going to use this corner of my metal rib, right? And I'm just putting a subtle line in there, very subtle. And what that'll do is that the glaze, of course, is going to pool differently in that, just those really subtle ridges. Okay? So just anything like that will help create some kind of interest. Or you can just leave them plain. I do. A lot of times. Because if I have a plain plate, a lot of times too, I'll leave the edges raw. Like this rim here and the back will be raw clay, just brown. And then I'll glaze this inside. Because that's where the food is, right? And that's where I want the attention. It is. So feel free, if you want, to come take a look, see what those are like. And any questions? I know 4 pounds of clay, and even if you try 3 pounds of clay, there's probably more than what you have used already in the past, right? We've done 1, 1.5. Now we're almost doubling that. So just be careful. Take your time. Make sure you're not moving too fast with your clay, and you'll make some really nice plates. Okay. When we get to the trimming part, that's where the plate really finishes off. Like right now, it's 4 pounds of clay, right? And your plate isn't 4 pounds that you pull out of the cupboard. So we're going to trim a lot of this clay off. Okay. A lot of the weight off. So, all right. If you have any more questions, of course, ask as we get going.